With week 10 of the NFL season in the books, the Carolina Panthers invited in a familiar divisional foe. With the Panthers facing two divisional rivals back to back, they look to finish this division trek 2-0 and push themselves 3 games over 500 for the first time since 2021. But with the Panthers' offensive combination clearly not a secret anymore, could the Panthers' newfound success on offense as well as defense continue? These questions and more will be answered on this edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, Growlers. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on this edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Of course, you're growling with the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And Panther Nation, I must tell you, I'm very disappointed. Now, I know many of you are going to say, well, yeah, duh, we got our butts whooped by a one-win football team. Yeah, and I remember specifically telling all y'all, if certain things did not happen, what were the results going to be? What were the outcomes going to be? Unfortunately, a lot of y'all didn't listen. And I'm not saying you guys are listeners. You guys weren't listening. I'm saying at the end of the day, a lot of you guys listen to me because a lot of people on certain platforms choose to blame certain elements that have no relevance to what we're talking about. Now, it may not be relevance, but you can't have one without the other. And you guys will find out what I'm talking about as we get into the show. But guys, Mr. CeeLo and Growlin' and Prowlin' have their first sponsor. And guys, I must tell you, this is something that I believe in and I think every good man should have. You guys need to go by and check out this product. He builds it, fixes it, lifts it, breaks it, then builds it again. The world calls him a man. We call him an effing man. TF Man, the lotion made for hands that earned it. Crafted from grass-fed tallow, squalene, and grit. No flowers, no fluff, just results. TF Man by LV. You guys know what kind of man a TF Man is? He's the man that gets it done. Just like me. Just like you. The one who doesn't need a filter. Like Mr. CeeLo. The one who doesn't need a hashtag or permission. He's not just a man. He's the effing man. And now he's got the lotion to match. What? TF Man, the whipped tallow cream from LV. Made from grass-fed beef tallow, squalene, and true grit. No chemicals, no perfume, just hand-earned hydration. For hands that build, lift, and live. Make sure you guys go online and check this out. Guys, I'm going to put the QR code up there on the screen. And if you guys put in the code FRIENDS20, you get 20% off your first order. Make sure you go over to their website. And guys, let me tell you, as a man that loves to look awesome and smell fabulous, this is perfect. I have been using it a couple of weeks, you guys, and I'm going to tell you, every time I get out the shower, I got to put it on my face and I got to put it on my hands. Because when you start getting to be my age, you got to start protecting all this, you guys, because guess what? The ladies not only like for you to look fabulous, they also want you to smell terrific. Because you don't want to just be the man. You want to be the effing man. Unfortunately, the Carolina Panthers weren't the effing man on Sunday, as they allowed the New Orleans Saints to come into not only their building, but to come into their opportunity and steal it away. Now, there are many individuals such as myself. I didn't do a duo on this show because, guys, I was just swamped trying to get ready for this cold, and I hope you guys are ready for the cold too and hunkered down and got you a nice warm place to cozy up at with your LV lotion and someone you love. But we weren't in a good place this Sunday. I mean, so many people are picking at what Bryce did. Now, I don't have the official stats on the pressures and the hurries, but I remember there was a stat that came up in the second quarter that said Bryce had been hurried 5 times, he had been hit 4 times, and he was sacked twice. What does that sound like? And I don't want to hear this about, oh, he was holding on to the ball. There was several times I saw Aquano get his ass kicked. I'm talking about it wasn't even close. I'm talking just running by him. And then I saw Bryce use his ability to escape to make 2 really good throws. But you won't hear people like Panthers Playbook or Julian Council say that. So many people keep just dogging out Bryce and they're not watching. I have told you guys, and I know many of you can get in the comments and tell me, how many times have I told you this offensive line was eventually going to give way? These teams were going to figure it out. All this talk was Rico Dowdle. Oh, it must have been his hamstring. I told you guys, Rico was only going to be as effective as the O-line. Let's look at Chuba. Hell, if way Julian Council and Dennis Cox and Chris Lee were talking, Chuba Hubbard should have got more carries. 3 carries, 14 yards, 4.7 yards a carry. Rico Dowdle had 2.9.
You fucking idiot.
Stupid. I mean, anytime these guys are wrong, they always backpedal. They start backpedaling. They don't want to hear the fact that they were wrong. And look, I love Rico. I think he's had the hot hand. But everybody in the National Football League's been talking about him. Did you not realize that this was going to be a change? Even I was kind of riding the bandwagon a little bit. Not that to the point that I was disrespecting Chuba or disrespecting Bryce. But here's the thing. When I sat there and I watched that Green Bay game, Dave Canellis did what we all hoped he would do, which was run the football into failure. And he did that. But here's the problem. We're not seeing that Carolina Panthers offense where Bryce Young was just throwing intermediate passes. But here's the reality. Bryce don't trust his line, and neither does Dave Canellis. Everybody keeps asking the question, is it Canellis not trusting Bryce? No, it's we don't trust that line. Because here's the reality. Robert Hunt was a massive piece to this offense, and I don't know how much more plain anybody can make that clear to a lot of you guys that don't listen to the right elements. You got people from Cat Crave that are not saying the right things, and there are so many people that are blaming Bryce for this. They keep saying this. Look, what happened at the end of last season was no fluke. What it basically boiled down to was this. He had a line. His line was healthy, and let me rephrase it. Cade Mays was the only piece that was missing let me rephrase it. Austin Corbett was. Cade Mays came in and showed himself. And whether you guys want to admit it or not, this offensive line is ravished. And there are rumors that we could possibly get Robert Hunt back. I don't see any reason why we should even rush him back. I mean, you're talking about we had Jake Curhan and Austin Corbett start rotating in and out in this position. Once again, Cade Mays did okay, and Ike Aquano was getting his butt whooped today. And that's the thing that really ticks me off is nobody said anything about that. He didn't have a good game. And I know people are going to say, well, what about his PFF? Well, here's the reality. PFFs are not always reflective of what was really happening out there. Because Taylor Moton had a 69.7, Tedero McMillan had a 68, and Ike Aquano had a 66.4. I don't see how they got that. Said Moton allowed 0 pressures over 27 opportunities. He earned a team best 83.3 pass blocking grade. I want to know what Aquano's was. Because Like I said, Moulton's side was fine. It was Equanu's side that was a hot mess. Worst of the offense, Mitchell Evans, 56, Tommy Tremble, 49-7, Xavier Legette, 47, Bryce, 36, Jimmy Horn, 36. And like I said, I would wonder why that is, because he had pressure in his face all day. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I think ultimately we have not gotten the offensive line figured out. Moulton is obviously the best on there. I would, like I said, I still question whether or not, that grade is accurate with Equanu, because he was not good in the run game. He most certainly was not good in the pass game. 2 missed blocks on the perimeter. One of them would have gotten Dowdle outside. And I've said this all the time when I coached the young men. I don't need you 15 yards up the field when I got 2 guys 5 yards from the ball about to make the tackle. I need these guys blocked. I don't need you 15 yards up the field. I need you 5 yards back cleaning up this. Let him worry about when he gets 7, 8 yards down the field. Because if he can't get past the 5-yard mark, what good are you 15 yards down the field? Who cares? Yeah, there are a lot of y'all that might agree with the sentiment that Bryce just ain't it. I beg to differ. I think ultimately the problem we're running into hugely is, we got to protect. And the thing is, you're hearing so many people say Bryce ain't getting it done, this, that, and the other. Let's keep it in perspective. Jimmy Horn should have been credited with a fumble because it did not look like he knew what the play was. It looked like he was running to get away from the ball. You got to know the play. I love that play with Jimmy Horn Jr., but unfortunately, he didn't know he was getting the football. And, ball ended up on the ground. But they gave the fumble to Bryce. And needless to say, that was one of the biggest, to me, that changed the game. If you can get that 6 right there, that probably kills the Saints, hopes. Outside of 2 fall downs by J.C. Horn, that we win the game. But this has got to be a situation where Canellis has got to figure out who he can plug in at that guard position that's going to give Bryce the protection. Now, there were balls that were knocked down, and I don't think anybody can understand why that is. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, that's on Bryce. Well, it kind of is, but it ain't. We got a short quarterback. So we got to realize the Saints are a team that if they don't get to you, they're going to get their hands up. They've always been that way. And see, this is where Canellis has got to start throwing it down the field. You are not stretching the field at all. You cannot have this notion that everything's got to be short. Everything's got to be short. The reality of it is Drew Brees didn't have a strong arm. That don't change nothing. That don't change a thing. Either you can ball out or you don't ball out. But offensively, once again, the passing game was not good. Chuba had the best. Rico had the best run of the day, but the best 3 runs came from Chuba. Well, two of the 3 best runs. Chuba averaged over almost 5 a carry. So to, Julian Council and Dennis Cox and Chris Lee's point, now we need to go back to Chuba. Just saying. But ultimately, what's got to happen is Canellis has got to, seems like this is always a common theme when we lose a game. Okay, the defense didn't hold up long enough. And what I loved about Tyler Shuck is Tyler Shuck took his shots. This looked like the 5-5 team. We looked like the team that was just coming out there hoping we didn't get our butts whipped. Coach Dave, you can't come out here in the National Football League and play not to lose. You got to play to win. Because if you don't, this is what happens. And you have to remember, you don't have Robert Hunt. You got to get more creative. You keep trying to play like everything's right there in your face, and that's not how you can do that. You have to continue to keep teams on their heels, especially if you're going to run with Rico Dowdle. And then the other thing is, if you're going to pass the ball, you have to use Rico Dowdle as a decoy. Why is Tetairoa McMillan getting short throws?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
Why are we not putting Bryce in more situations where we can get the ball down the field?
You can't handle the truth.
Why is Mitchell Evans not getting more opportunities to catch the football? Why is Tommy Tremble? Why are you only using them to pass block? Because here's the reality. Our receivers should not be catching short stuff. Now, granted, the interception that got called back, Bryce actually looked in the wrong spot. But you got to give Demario Davis a lot of credit. Most guys don't even turn around and look for that. That is a savvy vet. And for everybody that's sitting here dogging him, don't no linebackers make that kind of a play. Look, didn't he get benched last year because he wasn't pulling the trigger on that kind of throw?
Stop the cap.
Exactly. So this is why I get so sick and tired of hearing you double standard type of fans. Oh, it's a great throw. He needs to pull the trigger type of fans. And then when he pulls the trigger, it gets picked off by a guy who's made these plays his whole career. Then you want to talk trash. Now, I do agree he should have hit Coker, who was running a route further in. But yeah, I'm ultimately believing that yes, I'm not fixing to give Bryce the slam for this one. I get it. People are going to say you got to learn to be able to bring it even though it's your line's hurt. I get it. But to sit there and lay all the blame at his feet, I got a problem with that. I really do. Because here's the reality. What was Bryce last year? And I'm going to be honest with you, I think a lot of it has to do with Robert Hunt being hurt. I think Hunt needs to come back for us to be able to get this offense there. And I've heard that he's making really good strides and could be ready by December. That's possible. That's what I heard. But I wouldn't rush him back. Now, don't take that to the bank. I've heard certain people say that Robert Hunt could be ready before the end of the season. So, I'm not trying to rush him back because we don't know. But yeah, they're talking about he possibly could come back from the final 4 games, which I think is after the bye. Yeah, so that would be great news. If we could just hang on and possibly now, I guess, split the NFC South connection, if you will, up until we can get to our bye. And I honestly think if we can get Bryce going before Hunt gets back, it'll be huge for his confidence. Because right now, Robert Hunt is a huge piece for us, whether people want to admit it or not. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it, guys. If we get Robert Hunt back, you're gonna see a different Bryce Young. I'm gonna be honest. I think we see a different Bryce than we've been seeing. Because right now you're seeing a Bryce that's shaky because ultimately, one, Dave Canellis is shaky himself. He's not trying to throw it down the field. And Bryce is hesitant to throw it down the field because he's trying to get rid of it. But let's look at the defense a little bit as, we go into how the Saints were able to put. Look, there were just 2 bad plays by arguably the best player on this team. But you almost gotta throw Derek Brown in there, who was a terror on that defense. Had a huge 4th down that he got his hands on Kamara and just couldn't bring him down. But outside of that, 9 tackles for the big man, looking like that beast that had just racked up tackles left and right. And Trayvon Morrig once again having a big game, 7 tackles. And Trevin Wallace and Nick Scorton. Scorton is really starting to turn into that dude. Trevin Wallace, same thing. Really looking like a different player since he got that green dot. Outside of that, you really can't say too many bad things about the defense because, needless to say, it was just one of those games where just J.C. Horn would like to forget it. I'm not going to torch him as much, but, this is where I tell y'all, stop torching daggum Bryce. Because the reality of it is we don't have a very good offensive line. It's okay, but it's only good enough to block 4 and 5 guys. And Saints were like, no, dog, we selling out on this. Cam Jordan ain't no scrub. And I'll tell you, he was whooping Ike Ekwano's all day. Chase Young, too. You can't even deny that. Cam Jordan looked like he was 28 years old again. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, is he? I thought he was old. He's sitting here having a rebirth. But, hats off to the Saints, from them coming out and playing hard. And it goes back to the same old adage. Look, the NFL is a week-to-week league. The Saints haven't just been getting their butts kicked every week. They've come out and they've played hard. And, you know, when you watch how Chris Olave, who is still a elite wide receiver, you heard me, elite. And I remember saying this going into this game, but I didn't do the show, but I remember saying this, Chris Olave is going to have something to say in this game. And ultimately he did. And I think J.C. Horn said he did get away with a push, but I think J.C. said the official told him, we're not calling that. But he went over 100 yards receiving, had a score. Juwan Johnson had a 52-yarder. I don't know how the heck he got that wide open. I think it was J.C. Horn said he slipped. But as I said, Tyler Shuck's one of those dudes. He was at Louisville for a couple years. I saw him as a Notre Dame fan. What he was able to do is elevating Louisville. I said early in the year, if they get Tyler Shuck going, this guy can hurt you. He likes to let it loose. I think they need one more piece to go with it. I think Rashid Shaheed was a guy that, you know, they just couldn't get him going after he came back. Kellen Moore was unable to do what the previous regime was able to do with him, so I think they had no choice but to let him walk and get something for him. Alvin Kamara had a good game, 83 yards on the ground and 32 in the air, looking kind of like that guy that was dominant for so many years with the Saints. But ultimately, like I said, you got to congratulate the Saints. They played a good game. Happy for them. Not totally as happy as I would be if it was for me and us, but we got you. We got to come to Sin City. We'll run this back. But yeah, this is a tough one because ultimately, we'll finish this section of it. We will finish up with the Falcons next week, and then in a couple of weeks, I think we got the Saints in that final meeting, and then we finish the season. We go into our home stretch, and yeah. Not really thrilled about the way this thing ended up, and yeah, not fun. Not fun at all. But guys, let me know what you think about the Carolina Panthers upset loss at the hands of the New Orleans Saints. Please make sure you comment down below. If you're a first-time subscriber, make sure you comment. Leave your name down there so I can give you a huge growl out on the show. Also, make sure you go to my Facebook page and Facebook group of the same name, Growlin' and Prowlin'. Then make sure you meet me up over at Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can keep up with all the in-season shenanigans that I will be caught up in. But until the next time, be like the Panthers and make sure you leave your mark